Good morning, Tom. Thank you for coming. And today we have Tom Sullivan, who has a story with a happy ending, a happy recovery story. After 22 years of back pain and migraines, he is now pain-free totally. And we contacted him in order to learn from his experience so he can inspire us and educate us. So Tom, can you share how everything started, when it started?
Okay, we use the term the dark abyss, and that's where I descended into when my L3, L4 disc fractured. That is, it exploded. I'm almost 70 years old, and I've had 30 surgeries, including 7 spinal surgeries.
How much? How many?
7 on my spine, 30 total surgeries.
Yeah, 7 in your spines?
7 on the spine, and we didn't need to do 7 on the spine, but the neurosurgeon was chasing my pain. I've had 3 heart attacks, a stroke. I became addicted to opioids during the 22 years of treatment, and I lost so much hope and felt so terrible. At one point, I attempted suicide. Obviously, I survived that.
Yeah.
Thanks to my wife.
Yeah, good for you, good for us. So let's start at the beginning, the fracture in the vertebrae. How did it happen?
Well, I was involved in an automobile accident, and the result of the collision was a bulged disc at L3, L4. So after the accident, I stifled a sneeze, big sneeze, and my son was in the car with me sleeping. I did not want to wake him up, so I held the sneeze in, and when I sneezed, the disc exploded. It fractured. It went into many pieces.
Yeah.
That precipitated the first back surgery, L3, L4 surgery, where the doctor went in and spent a couple hours pulling little pieces of disc out of my back. And during that operation, there was a surgical error made, and I ended up with a slit in my Durasac that required the doctor to go back in 10 days later and repair the Durasac, and he also found more particles and he pulled those out. A year later, I was still in debilitating pain, and I got together with him, and he operated for a 3rd time. Subsequent to that, another year passed. I was still in the same pain, and he operated again. So that was 4 surgeries, and I didn't know anything back then, and I know a lot more now, and I know certainly that he was chasing the pain. He was looking for the source of the pain. It wasn't there. He was close. It was in my head, but he wasn't quite there.
Wow. So yeah, so the key word in your story is pain, pain, pain. It keeps repeating. Can you describe how were your days? Can you from morning till night? What did you experience? How was your routine, your daily routine? What could you do? What you couldn't do?
You know, when you ask me that question, in my mind returns to that time and space. It saddens me.
Of course.
That I spent a 1/3 of my life in pain. I would get up every morning highly anxious, scared, worried that the pain was going to be worse today than it was yesterday, and that the height of the pain would descend upon me at some point in the morning, which would be debilitating pain, where I would have to sit down, lie down. I spent some time in the fetal position, just curled up in the dark, and I would do that in the morning, and then I would demonstrate my grit. I would get up, I'd get dressed, I'd shave, shower, and I'd go out into the house as if I was going someplace. I wasn't going anywhere. I couldn't. I was under the influence of drugs, and my head hurt too bad. My body hurt too bad. And so it was in my back, my low back primarily, and I had sciatica in both legs, and the pain extended down to both feet. But the pain emanating from the center of the back was excruciating. It was enough that I couldn't stand up straight and walk straight. I had the daily migraines, and those pretty much rendered me helpless.
Did you lie most of the time in bed? Were you?
No, I absolutely refused. I absolutely refused to spend my day in bed. I'd get up and I'd try to function, and I'd quickly make a list of things that I wanted to get done that day, and I would hurry through them because I knew at some point I wouldn't be able to think straight because of the pain, and I would have to stop my activity.
So this is very typical to, when I'm listening to your story, I already see two personality traits of the TMS personality. The goodism, you stifle your sneeze in order not to wake your son. And
yes,
you are striving and not giving up. You are trying. You are overachiever. With all this pain, you tried to function. Nevertheless,
it did. It did, and it went on, as I've said, for 22 years. And towards the end of that 22 years, I lost hope that I would ever get better.
When actually did you hit rock bottom? When did you feel that you are in the deepest deep of this journey? When was that?
I was isolated. I was reclusive. I was highly depressed. In my mind, I was absolutely certain that I would never enjoy a moment of painlessness for the rest of my life. If you look at it from a mathematics standpoint, I had been in pain for 22 years. You know, what were the chances that I would not be in pain tomorrow? I didn't know anything about TMS. I had no coaching, and I was on my own. So subsequent to that, I tried to kill myself, and I planned it. I saved my painkillers over a period of time, and I had decided to take my life. And it wasn't, you know, a lot of times I understand that people, when they commit suicide, they're very, very angry about their life or about, you know, their spouse, their partner, what have you. And I was very, very angry about the fact that I could not function. So I took the overdose, and fortunately my wife was there. She called 911, and when the medics showed up, they had to intubate me immediately because I was already out cold and wasn't breathing very well on my own. When I came to, when the drugs wore off, I was in the psych department of the hospital, and I was there for a week. And during that week, they detoxed me, so I was completely off narcotics when I got out of the hospital.
And how was the pain there?
Oh, the pain was terrible. Pain was terrible. It was excruciating, but I changed my mind. I just changed my mind. I decided I did not need the opioids anymore. And I decided I was going to try to live with the pain, but at the same time, look for solutions. I hadn't looked for solutions previously. I just looked for the drugs.
Yes.
So once I had clarity of thought, I began my journey. I began my search for pain relief. I called I called all over the country, the United States.
So Tom, if I understand this dark time was actually also the turning point because then you had done the cold turkey of detoxing of the opioids.
Yes.
And you got you have got a clarity about how you are going to proceed without the medications, and you were determined to find a solution.
Absolutely correct. So I called around the country to different pain centers, asking if they could help me, and they all said no. I was too complex. The problem was too complex. I kept asking for the referral. Every time I would call somebody and they'd say no, I'd say, do you know somebody else I could call that might help me? I finally found somebody in California, and unfortunately he's passed away, and he was what I would call a modern shaman. What he did was he worked with people in their energy and tried to redirect it to a point of not being in pain anymore. And so he counseled me, and he said, Tom, you're a very angry person. I did not know that. I did not feel angry. I didn't know I was angry. But then he said, how about that doctor that operated on you 4 times? How do you feel about that? And I said, I'm angry. I'm angry about that. And he asked me a few other personal questions about relationships. And I said, yeah, I'm angry. And then when I had the stroke, I really got angry. When I was debilitated, I couldn't do anything physically as I had done for my entire life. I was a runner. I was a skier. I played racquetball. I was a sailor. I was a mountain climber. I was a parachutist. I did all of this. And then when I got hurt, I couldn't do any of it anymore. And I did not know that I was angry about it. It just existed. It was.
Repressed. It was there, but it was repressed.
Exactly. Exactly. So I found this Dr. Prezkov, who, as I said, has since deceased, and he acted as a counselor for me. And I want to make this point clear. I could not have done this by myself.
So what
what
was his name? I know you said he died already, but let's give him the honor. What was his full name?
Dr. Peter Prezkov. I think it's Prezkof. He has a book out. I cannot remember the name of the book. It's a hard read, but it's about his experience with people helping them overcome their pain. And it's a very similar philosophy to Dr. Sorno and Dr. Hanscom.
So did he actually shift something? This work with this Dr. Prezko, did it shift something in your situation? Did you feel less pain?
No, didn't feel anything other than relief when I finally admitted to myself that I wasn't getting, excuse me, go ahead.
No. Did you say that you felt relief only after you admitted, after you acknowledged the anger?
I saw him almost daily for a month. And well, no, that's not quite accurate. I probably saw him 2 times a week. Maybe I saw him 3 times a week at some point. But in any event, that's when we started to uncover how angry of an individual I was. When I started to say that when I had the stroke, then I couldn't think straight anymore. And my mind would not do what I asked it to do. And not only did that make me upset emotionally, but it caused my self-esteem to plummet. I felt that I wasn't good for anybody anymore. I had lost a lot of my memory. I wasn't able to read more than 2 sentences and comprehend what I had just read. I read about a book a week. And so that was very disturbing to me. So as Dr. Preskoff and I talked, it became obvious through through those conversations that I was indeed very angry. And if you're angry, you're toxic. If you're toxic, you're gonna hurt. I thoroughly, completely believe that if I hadn't dealt with my anger, I'd be sitting here today in the same condition I was 7 years ago. And so what I mean by dispelling the anger is that you face it, and then you deal with it, and then you let it go. And so as an example, the doctor that made the mistake,
Yes.
he had a bad day, obviously. He made a mistake. All of us make mistakes every day. And so I forgave him for that. When I started thinking about it rationally, and I had the clarity of thought, I thought, I'm holding him solely responsible for my condition. And I came to understand that that wasn't correct. That wasn't true. And he had done the best that he could. And I forgave him. I just let it go. I thought, I'm not going to think about that anymore. I don't need to, because he didn't intentionally hurt me. My father used to whip me, and I didn't like it. We were not friends. And so when I left home, I was angry at him, but I didn't express it. I just kept it inside, and I kept a lot of anger emotions inside of me. And when I got to thinking about it and talking about it and being counseled, I came to understand that my dad did the best he could. I didn't come with an operation manual. I might have been a little bit difficult as a young man to manage, but to this day, I think he did the best he could. And for that, it included, physical discipline. And we don't do that anymore, but that's the way it was back in the 50s. That's the way the children were treated.
Maybe he also had the same treatment as a child.
He may have. I didn't ask him, but yeah, and maybe he did. But once you start rationalizing these angers, it becomes clear to you that you're carrying it, and you're carrying it for no purpose. And I was carrying all this anger, and it was making me sick. My stomach was always upset. I always had a migraine. I was a very uncomfortable person. Once I had all those drugs out, and after I had met Dr. Preskoff, he taught me how to meditate. Meditation is required. Meditation is required.
So can you say more about it? What was his meditation technique? Did it work? Because there are several. You can meditate while walking. You can meditate while you make the dishes. So how did he? What was his approach?
It was very unconventional, and it worked. They tell you to quiet your mind so that you can meditate. When you're in pain, excruciating pain, you can't do that, because all you can think about is one thing, and that's the pain that you're in.
Yes.
So his technique was to have you lie on the yoga mat on the floor, and he would walk through or talk you through a relaxation process from head to toe.
Like yoga nidra, like he was tracking the different organs, different
energy.
No, I mean, he makes you focus on the hands, on the finger, on the...
Yes, exactly. Then he has you lay down, and he turns the music on. And in this instance, it was rock and roll. And he turned it up loud. If I had tried to have a conversation with the person 3 feet from me, would not be possible. It was loud. And so as I laid there, I started listening to the music. You have to, it's overpowering. And once I started listening and hearing the music, I wasn't feeling my pain. I was distracted.
Right.
That's another that's a huge component of getting better, is being able to manage your mind, manage your thoughts, and when necessary, distract yourself. So I was distracted from the pain, and I went into a very deep meditative state. I had never meditated before that moment. I went into a deep meditative state, and as we discussed with the doctor later, we believe it was an altered state of consciousness. I was completely unaware of my surroundings. I was completely focused on getting rid of my pain. As I went into the meditation, I had two thoughts. I asked God to take it away, take the pain away, and to allow me to return to my life. Just, excuse me. I still get emotional.
Yeah.
When I tell this story. So I'm in a deep meditative state, and it's a dark, dark place to start with. And over an unknown period of time, it started to lighten. You know, it was, let me back up. Part of the meditation discussion with Dr. Preskoff was that we use our third eye. We concentrate on the third eye.
Is it the location of the pineal gland?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And so you focus on this spot in front of you, and you concentrate and you concentrate. And then I ended up in this altered state of consciousness. And as the darkness started to lighten, it became a light gray. And then my midsection of my body was encircled around the waist with a gray cloud. It was very distinctive. You know, we had a darkness and a lightness of the grayness in the dark. And I was able to see this cloud, if you will, encircling me. At some point,
like encapsulating you?
No, just around the waist. That was all it was a gray cloud around my waist.
So you
was the center of my.
But the focus was on the third eye, on the pineal gland, and you felt something that is wrapping you around the waistline.
Correct. Now at this point, I'm no longer seeing the third eye. I've entered this altered state, so I'm not aware of anything other than what I'm seeing in this dark spot. In any event, I was encircled with this gray cloud, and it started to rise, and it went through my body, and it came out the top of my head. And everybody's going to go, well, that's pretty strange. That's pretty hard to believe.
It sounds like an hallucination, but
yeah, I've never hallucinated, but I think that it's close to that.
But people who meditate will tell you many stories like this. Something is happening when they reach this pure place of some state of consciousness or some state of awareness. I have not been there, but I can intuitively understand what you are talking about. And I must tell you, I think it took huge bravery to go into this inner space, and
yes.
especially with the pains and the worries, and let alone the worries around the pen. All kinds of demons are start with meditation. Many demons can arise from.
Yes, I felt nothing. I did not feel any pain. I wasn't processing thoughts. I was just being, and the gray cloud dissipated as it went off the top of my head. I saw it and I felt it.
Can you say
I can't,
something more, because I'm curious, because something shifted here. Let's try to, with our limited ability to understand these kind of dimensions, what was it about the pineal gland that led you to reach this?
it was the focus. It allowed me to focus
So what did
my
you do?
energy.
What did you do exactly by focusing on the pineal?
I closed my eyes and I concentrated on seeing a black spot in my forehead. I visualized it. As I dropped into that altered state, I was visualizing the third eye. And then after the cloud dissipated out to the top of my head, I came to. I regained my consciousness and I jumped up off of the floor. In my physical condition, that was not possible. I couldn't do that if I thought about it. You know, I would roll to one side and then I'd get myself on my knees and then I'd use something to lift myself off the floor. That is not what happened. I came through, I jumped up and I stood there and I went over to Dr. Prezkov and I hugged him and I said, it's gone.
Wow.
The pain was gone.
If I would read this story on a paper, I'm not sure I would believe it, but this is why it is so important to see your authenticity, how genuine the story is, and it humbles people, especially rational, analytical human beings whose attitude to this kind of stories is that it is a woo story, a mumbo jumbo story.
And
But
that's unfortunate for them if they're in pain. It's very unfortunate for them. And that's one thing that you have to, when you make the decision that you're going to take control of the situation that you're in, how do I put it? You open your mind. You must open your mind in order to do what I did. And I opened my mind and thought, I have nothing to lose here.
yes,
Let's try this.
yeah.
Let's try it.
Out of deep despair, you are sometimes you are on your knees and on your hands, and you are forced to be open to.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. You know, you surrender is what you do. You know, you give up, you know, the drugs and all these modalities that, you know, I went through the injections, the acupuncture, the hypnosis, you name it, I tried it. I had a lot of opportunity over 22 years.
Yeah, you exhausted every modality. Can I ask you something that, because something that was not clear in your last story. On the one hand, you mentioned surrendering and being on our knees in order to shift. And on the other hand, at the same story, you mentioned that you wanted to take control, to be in the seat driver again.
Very good, very good. So I surrendered myself to control of the pain. All the 22 years, I was always fighting, fight. I was in what we call that brace pattern. I was like this all the time.
Yeah.
You know, I was tense. I couldn't, you know, there was no way that I could relax my body in the mental state that I was in. So when I came out, I surrendered myself and said to myself, had that discussion, says, nothing has worked yet, Tom. Everything that you've tried has failed. I have to go a different direction. And in my mind at that time, I said, I'm going to leave Western medicine and I'm going to try other modalities. And I surrendered myself to that process. Does that cover what you were thinking?
Yeah,
Is that clear?
I understand. You surrendered. So in order to get control back, to get your control back. But the first
Exactly. I surrendered.
the first stage was actually a total acceptance and total surrendering and like radical acceptance. I mention it, it's not my idea, it's many people who are researching the healing process, like unbelievable stories like yours. They say that acceptance, and it is also a very Eastern idea of accepting, because you yourself mentioned that at the 20 years before that, you rejected, you opposed, you didn't accept, you fought
I fought.
the pain and the situation. And wow, this is amazing about what you told about the meditation and the pineal gland and the cloud. How do you explain it in hindsight now? What was that cloud in your opinion?
Okay, so after I left California and I came back home, I was struggling with the management of my mind over what had just transpired. It was hard to believe, but it was true. And I continued my research, and that's when I discovered Dr. Sarno, and that's when I discovered Dr. David Hanscom, and they have a very similar philosophy with the mind-body connection, if you will. And so my Bible in today, my Bible is Dr. Hanscom's book, Back in Control. It outlines the necessary steps and the steps that I took without his instruction to get better. And meditation is a big one. Releasing your anger and pent-up emotion is required. Expressive writing, you do that for 5 minutes in the morning, and you just write out your thoughts for that moment, and some of it's negative and some of it's not, but it's an examination of your consciousness from the day before, and then you shred it or you burn it. You do not reread it. It'll just reset in your mind. If you read it, you don't want to do that. So those are a couple of the steps that I practice daily. I practice the meditation, and I've gotten rather good at it. But I can meditate when I'm swimming. I'm a swimmer. I like to swim, and I swim about an hour a day. And when I'm swimming, I get lost in thought, and it's a meditative state for me. I can do that. Here's a really effective tool as people are trying to deal with their pain and try to get to the meditative state, is going back to the music. So I would distract my mind later on if I felt some pain, and it was not debilitating, but it reminded me of the debilitating pain I had been in. And so I have a water fountain, for example, and oftentimes with the sound, I'll concentrate on it and just listen to the sound of the fountain. And I keep coming back, and it empties my mind. I don't think about other things. I think about the sound of the music of the water. With the headphones, you immerse yourself in sound. You put the headphone on, you turn the volume up. You can't be in pain and hear at the same time. You can't do that. And so once the music comes on, you stop thinking, and it's just the music is distracting you. When you're distracted like that, you're not in pain. It goes away. And that's a meditation method that I think worked extremely well for me on my maintenance.
So what is your take on this after the music is off? When the music is off, how is the pain? Is it a technique to reprogram the brain? Like to weaken the pathway of the neural pathway of the pain in the brain. What is that?
What you do is you lay down new circuits in your brain as you clear the anger out, and as you learn the meditation. I think it's described as the the pain circuit way becomes unused.
What they
And
become? Sorry, I haven't heard you. What they become?
they no longer conduct pain. They're left alone. They're ignored. They're abandoned.
I see.
Okay, and then
So it is actually you were trying to accumulate more time with no pain, so the brain will learn that this is a possibility.
absolutely correct.
Mm-hmm.
And then your brain has been trained, once you're cured, that you will never go back to that place in pain. I've never been back. And the way I deal with life is I accept where I am, and I accept, the forces of nature, energy, and God, and I don't oppose them. I welcome them in. And that helps me stay stable, but I don't ever experience the excruciating pain that I once had. That is gone permanently. I've been told by other researchers that it will not come back. Once you've abandoned that circuit, it will not rebuild. You'd have to start over and rebuild that circuitry. And instead of doing that, you go to the positive way.
So Tom, you mentioned that what I understand from what you just said is that your relationship with pain has changed. So how it is different now when you encounter an occasional pain because of the wear and tear, because of gravity, maybe because of an occasional injury? Yes.
I've had surgery on my hand recently, and it was rather painful. I ignored it. I walked on. I thought of something else. I could deal with it in minutes. When the pain, on the scale of 0 to 10, when the pain would go in my hand post-surgery to a 6 or a 7, I would meditate, and then I would take a walk. And when I've meditated and taken a walk, my mind is preoccupied and I can't think about this. And then when that ends, then the pain is gone for some period of time. When it reappears, repeat the process. This doesn't hurt at all anymore.
Wow. It is like you mastered something huge.
What I did was I changed my mind. I changed my mind is what I did. I changed my perspective on the pain and the situation that I was in. You can, the more you look at something, the more opportunity it has to change in your mind. I didn't say that very well.
Yeah, please explain.
Hang on just a minute. There we go. All right, I got lost. Where was I? I was explaining. What was I explaining?
About focusing on something. What happens when we focus on something?
Well, when you focus on, I used to multitask. I would think about several subjects at one time and try to manage several subjects at one time. I found that I wasn't very good at that. And I think most people will burn out or eventually abandon that method because it's overtaxing. You can't effectively do everything at one time,
right.
But you can certainly effectively do something at one time. And let's back just for a moment. What just happened when I lost train of thought was the leftover from the stroke that I had when I was 47. I have a compromised memory in some senses, and it shows up every once in a while, and it showed up here just a moment ago.
No, it's beautiful because it's human, and I love it that you are vulnerable and you are not, it creates a deeper connection, a deeper bonding with other human beings when you are so vulnerable. And someone very wise in this podcast told me that when he decided to be vulnerable, he actually lost his fear by default, because you
Yes.
are giving up. Take me, bring it on.
So some of the things that fascinate me are books and philosophies that are out there. I mentioned Dr. Hanscom's book, Back in Control. Brene Brown did a TED Talk, as we all know, on vulnerability. That's why and how I am here today. I have made myself vulnerable to the entire audience. I've told you secrets that I don't share with other people. I am not a proud man to sit here and tell you I tried to commit suicide because I lost hope. Can't, you know, it's terrible. That comes from a guy that never gives up. And I gave up. I lost hope.
But it is your intention to help others in despair. So
exactly.
This is very, very admirable and appreciated. Thank you so much. So if you have to give...
When you, excuse me,
sure.
It just came back to me. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Yeah.
That's somebody else's quote. That's not my original material, but I live by that.
So there is another guy, Dr. Joe Dispenza. He has a book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself.
Yeah, I haven't seen it or read it, but that's a good idea.
But I never understood how you can change your mind. It is so, how do you do this reset? It's not a computer that you can, how can you change the operating system?
Well, it's because you've tried something that did not work, and you kept trying and trying, doing exactly the same thing over and over and over. You know, that's insanity. It doesn't work.
So I am thinking about your meditation moment when you dived there with all these excruciating pain, and where all the focus, all the vision is a tunnel vision that is looking on. You see nothing. You see just the pain and just the misery and just the suffering. So I am puzzled. And I'm very curious. I'm very curious how what was the moment that actually, you know what, I am interested to know what was your inner self-talk. What did you tell yourself when you entered this meditation and this?
I told myself.
Just a minute, and there is, there is this rejection and resistance in yourself to go there.
Well, during the time when you're in the pain, you don't think you'll ever come out of the pain. And so you think about the pain all the time. When you change your mind and stop thinking that I will never get better, and you open your mind and say, I can get better. I saw Tom get better. I can get better. And when you start thinking that way, you can get better. You have to take the steps, of course, but that's where you change your mind. You change your perception of the situation that you're in.
Mm-hmm. So what would you tell a person that is listening to you now, seeing you? He is in pain. He has lost hope. He may not kill himself, but he doesn't mind to die, because this is, for him right now, it is the best option as he sees it. What you tell such a human being in suffering and pain? What would be your advice?
The biggest mistake that I made was I lost hope. I gave up. Don't give up. Do not lose hope. You have to retain your hope. And if you're watching this today, I am proof that with hope and correct thinking, you can resolve your pain. You can cure your pain yourself with your mind.
So what is blocking people from healing in your idea, in your...
Say that again, please.
What is blocking people? The healing process, and also Dr. Sarno talks about it a lot. that the healing process is very natural. You break something, it heals within 6 weeks, naturally. But if someone is listening to you and he has something like a TMS problem, but it developed to be a structural problem, like he has already a deformity. And he looks at his deformity, which is very tangible, and he listens to you, to your ideas about change your mind, never lose hope, surrender, meditate. And all these ideas seems very etheric, very astral. They don't seem real. They are something more etheric, more less tangible, like the
Yes,
deformity that he looks.
the tangible is a good word.
So what would you tell him? That he's losing hope because he sees.
He needs to change his self-talk. He needs to talk himself out of, I'm hopeless, I'm never going to get better, my pain is excruciating. Listen to me, I will tell you all about my pain. That is another key component to getting better. You stop talking to people about your pain. Do not tell your wife about it. Don't tell your children about it. You don't come home and go, oh my God, I am in so much pain. You don't do that, because what you're doing is you're reinforcing the circuit in your head, and you're telling yourself, yeah, I am worthless and I'm in so much pain, I'll never get better. Right. You have to change that perspective. I don't know any other way to put it. I keep coming back to the same thing that I'm telling you, is that you must change your mind. You must open your mind. You must change your mind. You must read the books. You must immerse yourself in the healing process. This is not something that you do on occasion. It's not something that you do for an hour a day. It's something that you immerse yourself with. You immerse your body, you immerse your brain, and it's a collective effort.
Wow. Tom, I think your story is amazing, and sharing it. I have two more questions to you. Dr. Sarno and the experts that are now continuing his work, the research, and they are doing research with the functional MRI to check what is lighting in the brain while chronic pain. So what they saw is that the amygdala area, it's the area of the fight or flight, the fear is residing there. They are lit in the same time, so they connect, that fear is connected very much to chronic pain. Unlike acute pain, which is igniting other areas in the brain.
Acute.
Good. So what is your take on fear? And
on fear?
On fear, and on the other hand, on safety. So they are teaching their patients to cultivate a sense of safety. It is safety under your skin. It is safety with your relationship with others. It is a sense of safety with like in your existence, living in this on this planet. As Einstein said, you can see this planet as a hostile place or as a friendly place. So, and they say that safety is, the base flow. It's the vehicle to kickstart the healing process after it was stuck in the chronic pain and in the despair. So I wanted to ask you, what have you been doing in order to increase the sense of safety in your being, in your inner being?
I do everything. I don't do everything I used to do, but I do a lot of everything that I used to do, and I've recovered some functions. And that makes me feel safer in the place where I am now. When I was in chronic pain, I did not feel safe. I did not feel secure. I was completely out of control. I thought I was at the mercy of others. I wasn't at the mercy of myself, which I was, but I didn't recognize that.
Amazing. This is good stuff what you are. Last question is, you know, they say that quality questions lead to quality life. This is something that the Greek philosophers were saying. They were asking questions in order to provoke the thinking in the right direction and to gain more clarity. If you ask the right question, what would you advise a fellow sufferer now to ask himself as an engine to kickstart healing?
Well, it was irrational of me to think that my back still hurt as a result of the accident and the sneeze 20 years later. It's absurd. When I got better, there was no operation, there were no needles, there was no intervention from others. It happened to me, and I caused it to happen to me.
Okay. Wow. So it is a happy ending. Now you are.
I have so much energy. I had no energy. I mean, when you're in chronic pain, it sucks up all the energy you have in yourself. Everything is directed to that pain. And when you come out of it, you're able to distribute your energy back to positive places like you did before you got hurt.
So now you are 7 years pain-free?
Yes, I am.
Wow. So how are your days now? Can you share your joy and gratitude? And I mean, I'm interested, what is there when you cross the bridge emotionally?
Ecstasy, unbelievable relief, tremendous amount of freedom, and, as you just said, security. I wasn't afraid anymore. I was scared every day when I was in pain. I was afraid of the pain, and it was self-fulfilling.
So do you feel now that if, God forbid, you will have a relapse? Of course.
I understand.
And do you feel that now you have gained the tools, you master the tools and methods, how to reverse it, how to control it, how to tame it?
Absolutely. You know, I've learned how to maintain it, as we have just spoken about, the expressive writing and dealing with your anger, and meditating, and not talking about your pain to others. Those are the methods that I would still use. I would go back to those tools. You know, on the hand that hurt very bad for 2 weeks after the surgery, it was easy for me to have the frame of mind that I'm going to get better, and I'm going to get 100% better, because I know that my mind and my body will do that for me. Whereas when I was in pain, I didn't know that. I didn't feel that was true at all. And so I have overwhelming energy and joy in my life, because I'm not in pain. I'm able to relax and feel comfortable in my own skin, and know that I'm never going back. My mind is made up. I'm never going back.
I love it. I love this story. So I am very grateful to you that you came and shared it so bravely, with so much compassion to human beings around the world who are suffering now. And I wish you lots of joy and health.
I wish that for everybody. And I very much appreciate you and your time and your forum today, because what I speak is the absolute truth. And the more people that can hear this and understand it, to open their minds and understand it, more people that will resolve their pain.
Thank you so much, Tom.
You're welcome.